As always, welcome, welcome, welcome. You all know me, I'm Franda. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna give 1 full minute for anyone else that needs to log in, because we don't wanna miss this, right? We want to be here for this. So I'm gonna give 1 more minute for everyone to log in, and then we will go ahead and we will get started. So get your coffee, get whatever you need. You have 1 minute and I'll see you back then.
Hi, everybody. Hello, Ian and Soam.
All right, team, how was that 1 minute for you? I hope it was long enough. All right, so we are so happy that you are all here. Welcome to Coach Transformation Academy's Transformational Tuesday. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Franda. I'm one of the trainers here at Coach Transformation Academy. But I don't want to hold up anything. I want to tell you about this amazing coach that we're going to have with us right now, sharing with some information. She starts by saying that she's a human. That's a great start. Who facilitates other people's thinking. She's also a business owner, a mother, a friend, a volunteer, and a master coach with over 11,000, not 1,100, 11,000 hours experience. She's the author of Simplifying Coaching, and she's interested in how we hold presence in coaching and how we work in partnership in spite of power differences. So her style is very simple, she says. Her style is very simple, and she is in demand in organizations to develop simplicity in their internal coaches. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Claire Pedrick. Over to you.
Hi, thank you, Franda, and hello, everybody. It's lovely to meet you here. And yes, I'm going to talk about simplifying coaching. And I need to just tell you, I am a bit mind blown today because I have just interviewed Tunde Erdosh, who's just written a book about coaching presence. And I've interviewed her for our podcast, which is called The Coaching In, and it's on Spotify and iTunes. And I will put that interview out straight after this call. I'm just about to upload it. But it's probably changed what I want to say. And I will try and kind of sit that to one side while I let my learning blend through my head. Because, you know, the great thing about this world that we're in is that we can all learn all the time, and that impacts the way we talk about how we do what we do. And I think that's important. So absolutely, Franda, and please don't think I'm a guru after that introduction, because I am actually just a human being. And I think that one of the things that really matters in coaching is that we don't turn into somebody who is sorted helping somebody who is not sorted, because all of us are sorted and none of us are sorted. We're all broken and none of us are broken. You know, there's a complexity, isn't there, to what we bring to the conversation. And I think my journey to simplicity started pretty much in my coaching career in the early 2000s, when I thought, really, is it this complicated? Because it felt like you had to learn to do this, and then you had to learn to do that, and then you had to learn to do something else, and you had to layer on all these things that were a bit complicated. And finally, about 3 years ago, I felt confident enough to speak out about what I think coaching is. And this is what I think it is. I think it's a conversation between two people about one of us. That's what it makes it different from other things. It's a conversation between two people about one of us, where my job is to enable that you feel heard and that you get new insights into your own stuff. And that's what transformation is, isn't it? Transformation is when people get new insights into their own stuff. And they go away knowing something that they didn't know before, or feeling something that they didn't feel before, that's going to make a difference to what they do or think or whatever. So a lot of coaching can easily become transactional, and you can know when you hear in somebody whether they're kind of going, oh yeah, I think I know what I'm going to do, which probably means that what's happened is transactional. But when it's transformational, they kind of go, ah! And it's that moment when the thing that they now know, they can't unknow, and everything's changed forever. So my simplest demonstration of transformation is this. How many of you know how to peel off a sticky note without it going bendy? You know, normally you peel off a sticky note like that, and when you try and stick it back on the wall, it's bendy. Does that happen to anybody? So I'm going to give you a transformational insight. If you peel off a sticky note from one side to the other, like that, and then you put it down, it stays flat. Now you know something you didn't know before, and you can't unknow it. So I read a book by Peter Senge years ago called Presence, interestingly. And interestingly, it was my learning journey, Presence, and still is really, for about 15 years. But in that book, Presence by Peter Senge, he said that in science, transformation happens in a container. Probably if I move from science to baking, that will give you your best example. So if you want to bake a cake, you take all the things that you need to make a cake or bread, you mix them together, you put them in a container, you apply heat, and they turn from basic ingredients into being bread or cake. And you can't unmake a cake. So I then started to think, what happens if you put a conversation in a container? Does that also mean it's more likely to be transformational, so that somebody has new insights into their own stuff that they didn't have before? So here is the coach. This for me is mastery in coaching in a picture. So this is the boundary around a conversation that basically means we have a good beginning, a good middle, and a good end. But for those of you who are coaches, you'll know that in some conversations, there is so little boundary that you kind of go all over the place in the conversation before you get to the heart of the matter. So for me, if you're an ICF coach, International Coach Federation, you'll know that one of the competencies of coaching is establishing and maintaining the agreement. And in any conversation, that means that we need to work out what we're doing in this conversation, we need to do the work, and we need to end the work in partnership. And if we can put a container around the conversation, it's more likely to be transformational. And basically and simply, that means that we don't start doing the work in any conversation until we're clear on three things. One is, what are we doing today in this conversation? How are we going to do that today? And how will we know we've done it? And once you've got a boundary around the conversation is more likely to give the person new insights. So that's one point, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment with Erica, who's kindly volunteered to be coached in a little while. So putting the boundary around the conversation is one thing. And I think the other thing, which interestingly, Tunde Erdos this morning agreed with me, and that is that we are looking in the wrong place. So most of us, when we're thinking about somebody's competency as a coach or our own competency as a coach, we watch the coach and get very impressed by what they do. But actually, great coaching is about whether it makes the other person, the person who's being coached, does it facilitate them to think? And we need to be looking at them rather than looking at the coach, because that's where we're going to see transformation happening. And one of the things that I notice is that many of the coaching conversations I observe, and I probably observe, I don't know, 10 a week. Many of the coaching conversations I observe, I see transformation happening and the coach didn't see it and they asked another question. And so the person who brought their stuff, who was thinking, didn't get the insight that they might have because it was missed, because they kind of moved on too quickly. So in the hour that we have, what I'd like to do really is to demonstrate a 10-minute coaching conversation with Erica. Thank you. And then I'll explain to you what I did. And this isn't about throwing out everything you've ever done about coaching. If you like what I do and you think it's useful, please don't go on it. I need to do that now. Because actually you're wise people who've brought some great stuff to the table at this point in your career. But there are things that you'll take from this demonstration, I hope, that will give you some insight into things that you can just slightly change in your coaching that will make your conversations more likely to be transformational. So Erica, can you unmute and can somebody make us be side by side, possibly on the screen would be great.
Hello, Claire. Thank you.
Hello, Erica.
Nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you. And thank you for volunteering.
No problem. My pleasure, my honor.
So can I just have a ground rule or two for everybody else? What you're watching, people, is you're watching what I do and you're watching the space between me and Erica, and you're watching how Erica is having insights. But what I invite you to forget what Erica talks about. And in the feedback, it will not be about the subject or the things that Erica brought. The feedback and the learning will be what you notice about what happened, what I did, and what happened in the space between us. And please, if you ever know Erica or speak to her again, don't talk to her about this thing that she's going to bring to coaching today. So Erica, what's the question that you'd like to bring to this conversation to explore today?
So later this evening, I have a networking event.
Mm-hmm.
And to start with, I'm an introvert. So I'm resisting going so much, but I know, and I've been telling myself, if you had been more of an extrovert and been networking with people more, it would be by now, in terms of your coaching business, you could be further along. So while rationally, I know that, and I know I need to push myself, but I'm really feeling uncomfortable in going to this networking event because everybody there are people that I just never met before in my life. And I was so happy at the beginning of the lockdown, when the first lockdown came in, I was just so happy. I was just with my own company.
Wow. So you're going from introvert heaven to introvert challenging evening.
Yes.
So what's the question that we can explore in the time we have now that will really unlock this for you?
How can I find the push to go to make it more comfortable while I'm there?
So the leaving home and arriving there push.
And being comfortable there.
Okay.
I think if we get to the end where I'm like, okay, I will be comfortable there, then it will be easier for me to leave the house and go.
Okay. So how will you know by 23 minutes past that we've moved this forward enough for you to feel more confident?
It will be a feeling, a more optimistic feeling about tonight, about this event.
So you'll feel it?
Yes.
Do you know where you'll feel it?
Here.
Here.
It will be lighter because now it's like a weight in my chest.
Okay. So what do we need to do together to make that weight lighter?
I would say remove some of it. Yeah.
So what do we need to remove? What do you need to put down, Erica?
I don't know if I don't think awkwardness is the right word, but the discomfort, that's the word, the discomfort that I feel when I'm in a scenario, in a setting where I don't know anybody and I have to talk to new people. If they come and talk to me, it's all good. If I have to go and talk to them, it's as close as you can get on to hell, basically.
Okay, so what do we need to do in this time here so that you can feel less uncomfortable about navigating hell?
I guess give me the confidence that I can navigate this scenario.
So what do we need to do to be able to get that confidence?
Not being scared, so changing the way I see people that I don't know.
So if in your mind's eye, in your head, if you look around and see those bodies,
yeah,
what do you see?
So I don't know what reason, but it's been like this since I can remember processing information, but it feels like it's a threat. I'm scared, but I wouldn't know what I'm scared of. But it feels like it's a threat. And it's not a threat about being judged and not being liked. So it's hard to define.
So it feels you see a threat.
Yes.
So what do you need to have in your hand or in your pocket so that you feel more equipped?
Like it feels like it's a lucky charm, something like that people will be nice, or the people I will be talking to will be nice. Yeah, the fear is like if I fear people to be mean.
So you're holding your lucky charm.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Good.
How's your discomfort right now, this minute?
Better.
We've got about 4 minutes left, Erica. What do we need to do now so that it's a bit more than better?
Trusting that these people will be nice people.
So what do you need in your pocket? What else do you need?
Trust. Like if I had to wear it.
So lucky charm and trust clothes. Now you can feel your trust clothes. How are we doing?
Good. Good. Yeah.
Good. So what do you know now that you didn't know when we started talking?
That I need to trust the people there, that I'm gonna like them.
And you need to put your trust clothes on.
Yes, I need to be focused on that rather than what probably is a natural mechanism of feeling the threat.
So in the couple of minutes that we've got left, what do we need to do so that you feel really confident in this place?
I think I am. I wouldn't know what we can do in the next 2 minutes because I feel already more confident about going, because it's like it's about me trusting them being nice people and that I like them and I get along with.
So have we finished?
Yes.
Wow. And how are you feeling about your meeting?
Much better that I can do it. I can do it. And it's only an hour and a half also. So
Great.
for an hour and a half, I can hold my lucky charm and wear that trust nest.
Fantastic. Thank you, Erica, very much.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you. So everybody else, so just take a moment to breathe, Erica. So I hope what you noticed there was us co-creating the beginning of the conversation and working out those things. What we're doing, how we're going to do it, and how we're going to know we've done it. So we worked out it was about this evening. We worked out that it was about feeling a bit more confident. And then we did the work. And then we ended in partnership. So what we did was we created the beginning, the middle, and the end of that conversation. So let's hear in the chat, or maybe from one or two people who want to speak up. Let's hear from people. What was your biggest insight watching that about the process? So question one, what was your biggest insight? And the second one is, what questions do you have? And we'll talk about those, and then I'll give you a bit more about what I actually did. So share with me insights. What did you notice or learn? And questions. And thank you, Erica, so much for doing that.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Franda. What was your biggest insight, everybody? Give you a moment to think.
And I don't think we have a shy group. So we have Harris that is saying we need to trust the client.
Yeah, we do. And we need to follow them rather than getting them to follow us. And do you know my top tip secret?
Tell us.
The best questions come from them. So if you notice or you watch back the recording, you'll see that pretty much everything I asked Erica were words or sensations that she had said. So I was very lazy.
You have Yasser that is saying the process was faster than expected for him.
Can I tell you that this is a terrible business model to work like this, because you get the work done much quicker.
You can't get a full 1 hour coaching session.
No.
Rana says, when you ask her, where is the feeling located in her body? You want to share more about that?
Yeah, it would be interesting. Does anyone know why I asked her that question? I asked her the question because she went into her body. So she told me to talk about her body. I would not have with somebody else. And so Malin, the visualization supported a lot. I read an article yesterday that says that we can hold in our conscious mind 40 concepts at the same time. I don't think I can, but that we can hold millions of concepts in our subconscious mind. So one of the things I think is really interesting in coaching is that we try and resolve things and move things forward using words. But often they're things that were created by words. And Einstein said, you can't solve a problem in the frame in which it was created. So I often invite people to think. So that didn't set off Malin as a visualization exercise, what I was trying to do was to get her to think without saying a lot of words, because she'll think quicker than she's speaking. And it turned into a visualization exercise because Erica turned it into one, not because I led her into it. So she was leading. So as we were doing that, it turned into something which is super useful. Natalie, you have to be patient and comfortable with their silence while they're processing. Absolutely, you do. So one of my principles is this idea about don't interrupt people's thinking. Mm-hmm. We interrupt their thinking all the time. When you are paid to be a coach, you are not paid on the number of words you speak. You are paid for the processing that they will do when they are in your good company. And actually, a lot of the work they'll do is going to be silent. And I did know Erica would do good work on her own because she told me she was an introvert. And I know that probably she loves doing the good work on her own. And she needed a little bit of company for a little while to do a little bit that will give her a much bigger impact. Yeah, Dumi, absolutely. Clear framing of the work. So those 3 questions, what are we doing today in this 10 minutes? How are we going to do it? And how will you know by the end of this 10 minutes that we've done it? So using time really makes a difference to the quality of the conversation, because coaching conversations get out of control when the thing we're talking about is too big. So commonly, coach training schools describe that process as contracting, working out what we're doing together today, how we're going to do it, and how we're going to know we've done it. So when I wrote my book, I wrote all about contracting. For 9 months, I wrote about contracting. And 2 weeks before I submitted the manuscript to the publisher, I realized that actually what I was talking about was making the work the right size for today. So I made up a word called right sizing, because that's what we're doing. And that's a much better, I think, way of describing it. And it makes it clear the difference between the logistical things about the contract, how often, how many, who's paying, which is the contractual side, and the making the work the right size, which the ICF describe really what I did in their new competency 3, establishing and maintaining agreements. So what we need to do at the beginning of the conversation is frame it by making the work the right size. And do you know, it doesn't matter if they say, well, I don't really know. Because now we know that we don't know what we're doing. And that's a good thing. We can do work when we don't know what we're doing, but it's good to know we don't know. Because I used to talk to people who were being coached and they would say, my coach asked me all kinds of great questions, but we didn't really get to the thing that I needed to think about because the coach never asked me. And often I think what happens is as coaches, we dive in before we're clear about the work that we're doing. So another way of describing coaching is to think of it as a plane journey. So think about, we take off the plane together here, we fly the plane and we land the plane. Now, I was working in Russia 2 weeks ago, and one of the people I was training in Russia through a translator told me that they were cabin crew. And what she said was that when you're cabin crew, while the plane is taking off and landing, you are only allowed to speak about the taking off and landing. You're not allowed to talk about anything else. So actually in coaching, what I want to say is in that beginning bit, as we're working out what we're doing, the client, or as I would call them, the thinker, because that's what we hope they're going to do, they can talk about whatever they like. But my job is not to start diving into the work until I know and we know together what is the work that we're doing today in this time? And not to talk about anything else. So I think often we accidentally lead by accidentally asking a question about something that they've said before we're clear what is the work for today. Yeah, so I was focused on the person and not on her stuff. So so often I describe this as wavy people. So if you're looking at me here in the screen now, imagine that behind me is a whole room of networking people, probably all the people, if you're an introvert like Erica, your worst nightmare people. And imagine you're coaching me about that subject. It's easy to start talking to them and asking questions about them. But the only thing I have in my control when I'm thinking about my stuff as the thinker is me and how I do what I do. So we absolutely need to focus on the person. Rima, thank you that you felt we were connected, because there's something about co-creation breeds connection. And the thing that I know more than I know anything else in this world is that I do not know how to coach anybody. I know how to coach, but I do not know how to coach Erica or Franda or Soam or Lilia or Shanti or Dumi. I don't know. I have no idea how to work with you. So every conversation that I have needs to be co-created, because we need to work out together today how we're going to do this thing. And it may be that if Erica and I worked again next week, I can't know that I know how to work with Erica just because it worked today. We need to work it out again. So we need to co-create every single time. So it's not only about the objective, it's how you'll get it. Absolutely. So there are 2 or 3 questions that really help us. One is to use the time after we've begun the conversation. So I said, so how will you know in 8 minutes that we've done that? Because one of the risks about coaching, you lovely people, is if you are great at making the coaching conversation feel spacious, they've no idea how long they've got. And you're opening up this thing and opening up and opening up. And then suddenly you go, it's time to finish now. Come back next week. So instead of landing the plane, what you've done is you've just sliced it off, because you were very strong on presence and trust and intimacy, but you're not checking in and letting them know where we are in the phase of the conversation, the beginning, the middle, and the end. So those things are, so I asked Erica a slightly tweaked version of what would you like to be different by the end of this conversation, and how will you know we've got it? So I normally say, outcome. What's the outcome from this conversation? How will you know? But I think I slightly changed that because of what she'd said. Karen, thank you. I'm glad you like in this time here. I think that if you want to take one thing away from this, people, the extra word that you can put in what you're doing is today, or here, or now. So what's your question for today? Did you notice I asked Erica, what's your question? I did not say what's your issue or what's your problem. And the reason I say what's your question is that what it does is that most people go, oh, what is my question? And they go inside and start working it out before they've pretty much said anything else. That means that instead of starting from stationary, they are already moving down the tarmac. My observation is that coaching is massively easier when somebody is moving, and my only role is to keep them in flow in their thinking to get where they need to be by the end of this conversation. So if you can get them to start moving at the beginning, it's going to be better for them and easier for you. And if it's easier for you, it's more effective for them. So these are really simple concepts that really are all about turning the coaching conversation into a journey in this time, in this place, with this person. And actually, Karen, one of the things that I do is if it gets too big again, I'm sure you've all had a coaching conversation where it just gets too big and you're thinking, oh no, oh dear, oh help, or oh whatever you're thinking. But actually what you can do is to bring it the right size again. So today, what's the question? So if I was coaching any world leader about their COVID plan, either now or a year ago, and you say, so what would you like to bring to coaching today? And they go, we're in meltdown with COVID. And you're thinking, oh dear. And then you're also thinking, and this also affects my health. And then you say, so which bit of what is it? I mean, it just becomes overwhelming. Whereas if you say to the President of the United States, so which bit of that is the question you'd like to explore in this 30 minutes? Can you hear? He goes, oh. How will you know in 30 minutes we've moved it forward? So which bit? So today is a great word to have in your toolkit, and which bit is also a great word to have in your toolkit. And Jolly, many of her questions were rephrased. Absolutely. So what I was doing, I was using her language. Harris, what if they have no idea what they need to do because they hope to be led? Well, you can lead them, but it won't be transformational. Because in order for it to be transformational, for them to really understand something that they didn't understand at the beginning in a new way, they need to have made meaning for themselves. Because I cannot make meaning for anybody else. They have to make meaning for themselves. So I would name it and say, and that's about how do you build trust up in the first session. I wonder if it's useful just to pick that up now. So one of the issues about coaching is that Harris, often that person is the person who was sent to coaching. The person who wants to be led was often sent to coaching because people who choose to come for their own stuff are usually more able and more willing to do the work. So I think that my secret is if that person needs a conversation where we get to know each other, oh, thank you for coming up with your picture. When that person, when there's a getting to know thing needing to happen, we need to be clear that that's not coaching. So if you do getting to know them as part of the first session, unless you tell them it's not coaching, they'll think that's coaching. And as soon as they think that's coaching, they think you're just having a chat and they're not going to do the work. Because one of the issues about coaching is future focused and optimistic. But the getting to know you bit is often backwards focused and storytelling. And if you do that and they think it's coaching, then they're going to go that way and think you're going to lead them back the other way. So that answers Robin's question about the fishtail. So this is what I would call the pre-conversation. It's the stuff that we need to do before we can start doing the work. So Harris, if you're talking about somebody where trust is very low and they really feel like they need to be led, your pre-conversation, you're kind of just establishing a relationship between you before you start doing the coaching will probably look like that. There'll be quite a lot of chatty and then a little bit of coaching. But the skill is to tell them that's what you're doing. And with that person you're describing, I personally don't use the word coaching. So I would say, I wonder if it's useful if we just have a chat and get to know each other a bit before we start doing the work. Chat, 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 chat. Are you ready to start doing the work? So in the 10 minutes we have left today, what's the question you'd like to think about? And then off we go. Does that answer your question? You can speak if rather than going into the chat, Harris.
I
Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that answers. But yeah, I'm also curious. Like, they know the question. Like, for example, Erica knows the question, but then when you ask, what do you need to do to get to that answer? I mean, that can be tricky, right, for clients. Oh, isn't that your job to like help me know what to do? But for Erica, she knows, oh, I need to reduce that. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
If it's coaching, they need to do the work. People come to us with all their stuff. Their beautiful, wonderful stuff. If we ask them questions about their stuff, this is what happens. I say, tell me about your stuff. Tell me more about your stuff. Tell me more about your stuff. And at the end of the conversation, I know a lot about them that I didn't know before, but they don't know anything they didn't know before. And I think the skill or the secret, Harris, is about how we are together. So most one-to-one conversations between two people, the person who is perceived, the person who we think has the power, ends up doing the work. So that might be the doctor, the consultant, the therapist, whoever. In coaching, they're doing the work. So if you are in a talking to position, then they will talk to you, especially if they don't really feel like doing the work. So if you're face to face, you need to not be in the same chair positions as the doctor, the consultant, the advisor. You need to not sit like that. Because if you sit like that, they will turn you into that person. So in your mind, you need to be moving from talking to kind of standing next to and looking at the thing together. So one way is to use the language of looking at it together. So I might say to somebody, let's look at that together. What do you see? Always start with them. And actually what I do is I get them to map it out. If I think they want me to do the work, I get them to map it out in front of them with anything. You know, I've got a cup and glass of water, you know, just map out what you see in front of you. What do you see? Because that puts the work back to them. If they're doing the work, it's more likely to be transformational. But if you can think in your head, you want to be looking out of the window at the situation together rather than having them transmit data. Thank you for your question. It's great. Are we all right with me just going down this thing? Just checking in. One of the things that I like to do in coaching is I'll check in. You notice with Erica, I checked in a lot. Because in the same way that I've no idea how to coach anybody, I've also no idea if it's working or not, unless I ask them. And that means I need to ask all the way through. But if you notice with Erica, I did not say, am I doing a good job today, Erica? Please tell me this is okay. I was going, is this useful? What insights have you had? So the checking in was about how she's moving through the stuff. And if you check in from the middle, is this useful? What insights have you got? If they say none, you can say, that's fine. We've still got another 5 minutes or an hour. What do we need to do in the next hour so that you get some new insights? Coaches work too hard. When we work too hard, the people we're coaching work less hard. We need to do less work. I mean, and I'm not saying that simplifying coaching is simple, because actually it's a lifetime's journey. And it looks simple, but it takes a lot of putting down to be able to do it. But it is so effective because the other person knows they did the good work themselves. So say less, work out together what you're doing more. Yeah, Noah, thank you. I love that last push, even when she was satisfied with the outcome that brought the trust, you said brought the cherry on the cake. What I want to say, Noah, is did you notice the change in Erica's tone after I did the second landing? Her tone changed completely because I was listening for a change in tone, because a change in tone usually indicates that something's changed for them. Yes, Brenda, have your client be their own Yoda, and absolutely don't be a guru. I am still absolutely so excited, having had a conversation on our podcast this morning with Tunde Eros, and you can get it on Spotify. It'll be up in about 2 hours' time. I've just put it in the link. But she's also talking about, we're only human beings. If we think we're doing something special, we are disempowering the person we're working with. And coaching is so very special, but equally, it's actually very simple. But if we're suggesting that we've got some magical powers, then they expect us to have some magical powers, and then they won't do the work. Robin, what if the client doesn't want to go deeper? Well, they don't have to if they don't want to. Not everybody wants transformational coaching, do they? You know, some people want a kick to say, are you going to write that email or not then? We can only go as deep as they're willing to go. But I think the skill is to say what you see. So, for example, if over time you notice that somebody doesn't want to go deep, the first time I might say, I notice you don't want to go deep, and just leave it. The next time I might say, are we avoiding something? And leave it. The next time I might say, oh, look, have we been here before? Are we avoiding that? Is that okay? And then I might go, is that okay for you? And is that okay for your organization and your system and whatever? So I think there's something about it, about noticing it and not forcing them, because not everybody does want to go deep. And it really depends on what was the reason they came for coaching. But I think one of the dangers in coaching is that we might think we see a whole lot of things that we either do or don't. Nigel Wellings said, never know first, never know better, and never think you know. Because if I think I know something, then I will start accidentally leading the conversation, and that gives me power. And if I lead, you follow, and if you follow, it's not going to be so useful. So there's something about saying what we see before we've diagnosed what the problem is. So one of the principles I think about coaching simply is to notice and to say what we see, but not to diagnose. And if you've come from any diagnostic profession, whether you've been an engineer or a doctor or an accountant or an HR director, if you've come from a diagnostic profession, you will be pretty hardwired to make meaning of what somebody else is saying to you. And in coaching, we need to suspend that and get them to do the work. Did you have a supplementary question, Robin?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
You are.
Very quickly, I observed that when you were exploring, when the client was unwilling to go deeper, there were a lot of closed questions that you were offering. Was that on purpose and by design, or?
So what were the closed questions?
I think there were a series of closed questions like, I notice you don't want to go deeper. Is that true? Yes, no. And didn't we visit this place before?
Oh, you mean in
And-
what I just said?
Yes.
Sorry, I was going back to the conversation with Erica. That was I was lost. They are closed questions, and closed questions are safe. And what you're describing is something that may or may not feel safe. So I did a whole coaching conversation once with somebody who never told me what it was about. And I said to him, it feels like you don't want to say what this is about, but it's about something difficult. And he went, yes. And I said, well, if I promise that I'm not going to ask you to tell me anything about anything, would you like to work on it? And then I asked only closed questions. And I was on a residential, and the other facilitators went, what on earth happened in there? And I said, I've no idea. Because what happened was I invited him to go into his own space. And I think there's a danger that we turn into amateur therapists by mistake, by leading people into deep when they don't want to go there. But I think we also have a responsibility to name it and to notice it, but to make it safe. So those closed questions I just did in that run were intentionally closed in order to keep the client safe. Do me. Well, we're coming to the end. What a great question. What is the one takeaway tip, Claire, to help coaches let go of the need to control? Get over it. It's not about you and your control. It's about them. and it's, while you are controlling it, they are following you. And while they are following you, they are not getting the insights they need to get. So duct tape is a great one. You know, duct tape. And the other one, which is probably less sarcastic, the other one, do me, is never be the one to break the silence, and watch their eyes. And if they're busy, don't speak. So I could tell you a million things in the next 6 minutes, because it's very tempting because you're all hungry, but actually that's not going to serve you well. So I just want to encourage you, please think about one thing that you will take away from today that you're going to apply in your coaching. Please, please don't apply everything, because that means you'll do something to this poor person who's sitting with you. And that's not really a great idea. So just take one thing. If the book's useful, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Kindle, Simplify, and you can get it from Book Depository, Simplifying Coaching. The publisher is Open University Press. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. And if you want to connect on LinkedIn, my blog, which I posted yesterday on LinkedIn, was the one about the air stewardess and not speaking at the beginning of the conversation. And also you can get any ideas that I've shared today on our website, absolutely free. So in the 5 minutes we have left in good coaching, because did you hear me use that with Erica? I talked about time and counting down the time. So in the 5 minutes we have left, let's just have a few people unmute and say the one thing that you're taking away, which we will do after I answer this final question from Rindala. What do we do when they are expecting us to do magic? Well, first of all, they're not a coachee, they're a person. Sorry, that's controversial, isn't it? While we have power language for the names of the people that we work with, we will always feel a pressure to do magic, I think. All we are is a human being who is facilitating the thinking of another human being. I'm not a magician. And if when they have a quick win and get an insight into their own stuff, they begin to see that the magic is inside them. And the courage of being vulnerable in coaching is when we know that we don't have any magic in our pocket. And when we show up as a human being and leave the magic behind, that's when the magic starts to happen. And it comes from them, because it is a fantasy to believe that coaches are magicians. Because we don't know how to have a conversation with anybody unless we ask them. We don't know how to make a coaching conversation with anybody great unless we ask them each time we meet them. And the more you use tools, the more they'll expect you to use tools. Sometimes, occasionally, they are really the right thing and they are useful, but let them come last. My mother, when I was a child, used to say, when we had people round to eat, my mother used to say, visitors first. When you're coaching, their question is always better than yours. Let them go first. Your job is to use their questions and give them back to them. And then occasionally you might have a question in your resource box of great questions where you can just have a little look and use it. But if you spend your whole coaching conversation with your head in your toolkit of great questions, tools, and techniques, you're not listening. Get them to do the work. So let's hear from two people as we get to the end of the hour. Unmute and tell us, what's the one thing that you're going to take away and do differently as a result of this firework that I've just dropped? Venzo.
Duct tape. That's all I'm taking away.
What are you taking away?
The duct tape.
Duct tape. Great. Fantastic. Thank you. One more person. What are you taking away? Noah.
I would like to mention the say what you see. I love that.
Say what you see. Yeah. Yeah. And we need to recognize that simplifying coaching makes us feel more light about it, because when we don't look like we're doing magic, they less expect us to do magic. And one of the most powerful questions that you can ever ask is, and? There's so much I could say. That's all I can say for now. But thank you so much for listening. And please, please, please only do one thing.
Wow. Oh, hold on. I'm still muted. There we go. I absolutely have no words. And that's really rare. Some of my students are here. They can tell you that is really, really rare. Absolutely powerful. And I love the takeaways. And what I do hope is that as much as you've received takeaways from this session while you're here, go back, listen to it again. Listen to those parts that you were writing while she was talking, like I was doing. Listen to all of those things, because there was so much learning here. And Claire, we have to have you back. In some way, this has to happen again. Erica,
have me
thank
back.
you.
Have me
we
back
will.
to talk about
we will.
And I'll talk about punctuation.
I think we have a plan. and if we can't have you back here, we'll have you back in Skill Builder, and I'll send you a message about that later, because we have an awesome group there as well. Erica, thank you so much for being so open.
Yes, thank you, Erica.
Truly, truly appreciate it. We appreciate all of you for being here. Soham, you didn't tell me who's going to be here next week, but it's okay. Join in next week anyway. So absolutely looking forward to seeing you all here. Please connect with Claire on LinkedIn. Connect with her and just, she said, as Shadi said, we've attended a takeaway store. So next week we have Brent
Can I
O'Bannon.
just say,
Yeah, go ahead.
don't eat it all at once.
And I think that was the biggest learning here is, yes, we have to do this in small pieces. We have to make sure. And by the way, do what's comfortable for you at that moment and then expand it to be even greater. So we're going from good to great. Again, thank you so much for being here. Love you all. We look forward to seeing you next week at our, what time is it next week, Soham? 4 o'clock as well?
No, 7:30 p.m.
See, he's so smart. So 7:30 next week. We look forward to seeing you here with Brent O'Bannon. And you'll see the video on YouTube as well as Soham has put the links up already. Go to Claire's website. I've been on it all day. So go to it. It's lots of learning there. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being a part of our Coach Transformation Academy family. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye.